Ahoy! We are back on another exciting episode of Starfleet So Hailed. I should say Starfleet Twain. And what are we talking about today, my esteemed colleague over here, Toddy
Aha,
Twain?
indeed, my twin Twain. We are talking about something borrowed and something green, I say.
Oh, I love something green. We're back on
I
another
love me
exciting
some Tendy
episode.
too.
Ooh, yes. We're back on another exciting episode of Starfleet So Hail, where we're twinning. I thought about us a lot during the Brotherford scenes in this episode,
Mm.
Toddy. I just feel like we'd be good. We'd be similar types of roommates where like we'd get along fine, but then you got to water the bonsai, and then it creates a whole thing. But then we'll figure it out by becoming twin twains. I feel like that's us in a nutshell.
That feels very accurate. Maybe it wouldn't be specifically Mark Twain, but I feel like we would be like, how would Star Trek handle this? You know what I mean? Like, let's do a Picard speech. You would come
Yeah.
in, you'd burst in, screaming some Picard speech at me, and I'd go full Kirk. You know what I mean? And would get it resolved.
No. Now we know how Star Trek would handle it. It is twin twain by twaining. So that's the ultimate solution. But yes, we are here to. Just as a little matter of housekeeping, This is a previously recorded video. We are not live per se, but maybe one of us are live in the chat. So to our future selves, hello, and also to our audience, hello, welcome. I hope you have fun.
Howdy.
I hope you have fun talking about this episode with us. Uh, Toddy, did you watch this episode recently?
Yes.
Would you like to do the episode summary?
No.
Oh, fine.
I like the
I'll
one that
do.
you did last week. It was very succinct. It was wonderful.
Wasn't it like 20 minutes long? I feel like
No. Well,
it was
last
very
week is like
like,
yesterday, right?
yeah, yesterday. It was actually yesterday for us. This is a weird timey-wimey thing going on. All right, fine. I'll do the episode summary. So, this is the first time we get to see Orion. Tendy is called to a
We
wedding
have seen the Orion district on Konos, but not
on Kronos. That's right,
Orion's.
but
Yeah.
we've never seen Orion until today. Until now we've seen Orion at last. But
Planet
anyways,
reveal.
Tendy's called back to Orion to attend the wedding of her sister, Erica. And even though she doesn't want to go, Captain Freeman's like, this is a good opportunity because just recently there was a lost Orion ship. And so this might look good, showing that Starfleet, cares or whatever. And so Mariner and T'Lyn asked to join, and then it becomes a triple threat girls trip. And so they go to the planet, and they get into some shenanigans over there, and we get to see what Tendy's like. We get a lot of interesting looks at Orion culture, and some of the different locations on Orion were pretty interesting. Meanwhile, back on the ship, we have an interesting situation going on where Captain Freeman is trying to scan a nebula, but this, what was he, Chulin or something like that? Chanthan, I think. Chanthan, uh, who happens to be there first, is like, no, we don't, I'm not going to let you. So Rutherford and Boimler, who had just resolved an argument over who gets to mist their bonsai tree, suggests that they do this, and somehow they go along with it. And so Captain Freeman and this very angry uh, captain get together and start twaining, and it's a disaster. It doesn't work out. But then they mention the bonsai tree, and that piques his interest, and so he goes and he checks it out and decides to eat it. And so he thinks, like,
Problem
I guess that
solved.
problem solved. And I guess that was diplomacy enough because they're allowed to scan the nebula. Anyway, meanwhile, back on Orion,
Sometimes you just gotta feed the guy a bonsai tree. You know what I mean?
on Orion, the whole mystery is like Erica's gotten kidnapped, which is unusual because bridal kidnappings are part of Orion culture, but not before the guest RSVP or something like that. So Tendy goes on a hunt to look for her sister, and it turns out that no one kidnapped her. She's been hiding out because she was mad at Tendy for leaving many years ago and putting the responsibility of being the mistress of the Winter constellation, or the prime, as the prime um, child, burden on her. But it turns out she loves to do that stuff anyways. So after a little reconciliation, all's well, and Erica makes it to her wedding on time, and everything's good at the end. That's it.
She had
That
some
was a good summary,
insecurities,
right?
didn't
What's
she?
that?
She had some
She did.
insecurities.
She definitely did. Shall we dive into the discussion, Sir Toddy?
Absolutely. Yeah. Last week we just kind of like rushed into it.
Oh, by the way, we never rated. It was pointed out to me afterwards that we never rated the last episode.
Yes, we did. No,
Did we?
I said a 6. I remember because it was
Oh,
almost
then
like a
maybe
me.
you're right. Oh, you know what it was? We didn't rate Discovery episode 1 and 2 on the. I just
I
looked at
haven't
the
seen that
message.
yet. I will be watching it as soon
Yeah.
as possible.
Oh, you still haven't seen it,
Oh,
so
come on, it was
yeah.
yesterday.
I don't know. Some of us watch it at
Oh
midnight.
yeah. Sorry.
What is it?
Look, I don't
When it
watch my
releases?
episodes in the middle of the night because I like to watch them and not fall asleep like certain other people do. You know what I mean?
Wow, that was a really that was a low blow there.
I say, I didn't mean to hurt your feelings, sir.
Well, I say, I think you were just trying to tell it like it is.
Sometimes a bit of hard truth doesn't do you wrong, you know?
Wow,
This is dreadful.
I love it. We're gonna do this. All right, so
Just randomly
would you
scream Twain and you have to take up the accent.
now, as someone who hasn't seen the whole season yet, if I'm not mistaken, right? You
Yeah,
still
so
haven't
I'm
seen,
very
yeah,
intrigued by this. So this is the second
yeah.
appearance of the mystery vessel that shoots rainbow beams.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I like it. Um so I don't so it's like a mystery enemy, right? That's what's going on here.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you think's happening though? Are they getting obliterated, or what's
So I'm
going
getting
on?
flashbacks of that TNG episode Masks just by looking at
Yes.
like the shape of this thing. But also like there's a species um that has a head or something that kind of looks like this. It kind of reminds me of something.
Hmm.
Um, mm, mm, mm. But I don't know what it is so much. You know what I mean?
What did you think of the Orion lower decks and the Orion plagiarist? That was a really funny
It's
joke.
pretty funny. It's pretty funny. I do appreciate how like I'm gonna say how uh eclectically inspired these Orions are, because they like these ones very much like come from Enterprise, and how Enterprise has this whole reveal and this twist that the female Orions are actually running the show. Like the whole like Orion slave girl is just like a charade. Basically, it's to fool people. Um, and then like Discovery kind of had a play on that when they showed the Orion district on Konos, and how like basically it was the males who were very much subservient. I'm assuming it's not the same thing everywhere, but like generally speaking, that's kind of how like that species dynamic works. And I like that they're like using all of that, everything that came previously, to inspire this iteration of them.
Yeah, definitely. The Orions are such an interesting species, and I like here in the episode they even reference the Enterprise Orions like getting bolts, put into your body or whatever. Like how they had the males in that episode had the metal parts like kind of attached to their bodies, and they were like these big gigantic guys and stuff like that. So we've seen a lot, and also it's cool how they like later on in the episode how they bring up the pheromones. We'll get into that
Yes.
as well, but yeah, it was very interesting. But yeah, so this is this ship here very
Funny dialogue.
any yeah, it's true. I like the captain and her first officer. That was very cool as well. But so celebrating lack of purpose is illogical. I love that
So
about the
just
scene.
before we move on, at this point in the series, like you had seen 3 episodes, 3 had come out. What were you thinking about this whole Had you figured it out already, like who the species
No.
was?
As a
No,
matter of fact, I'll be curious to see how you get along because I don't think I figured it out till the very end,
till
like
they
till
showed
that
you, basically.
yeah, till what they showed you. Like, so I don't
Oh,
think I had any idea what was going on. So yeah, if I recall correctly, it was quite a good don't look it up. Don't look it up.
no, I'm
No
just trying to
spoiler.
figure out
Oh,
what kind
okay.
of species. Like the shape of it reminds me of like the head of a species, but I don't know if it's a Star Wars species that I'm
Mm.
thinking of. You know what I mean?
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, just don't spoil yourself because I think it's exciting that you don't know.
No, no, I won't look it up. I won't. I'll try to figure it out, but I won't look it up.
It's interesting. I think this is such an interesting thing about Tendy being embarrassed by her culture and her people because of the conception people have of them being pirates. I wonder if this is similar to like how many people view Roma or Gypsy people on Earth. I think it's a culture that's very misunderstood and has a lot of like stereotypes associated with it. What do you think?
Um, to a degree, I do think that um, I'm gonna put this. I feel like Orions live up to the like the perceptions that the species have of them. Like, Tendy doesn't. Tendy's truth, you know what I mean, isn't the same as most Orions, and I think that's where it comes from. Like, so you talk about misconceptions about like certain people on Earth, um, and that's because they don't necessarily do or reflect what is said of them. You know what I mean? Whereas I feel like a lot of Orions kind of do, or especially in the depictions that we've had up until now. Like basically everything outside of lower decks has depicted Orions in a negative light up until the very recent like discovery, right? Like we've had what is it, 32nd century or whatever it is, like Orions, and they're still bad guys. You know what I mean? They're still not that nuanced, which is
Well, here they're kind of I feel like Orion's here kind of like there's a lot of piracy that's definitely going on. I mean, like the culture is all about it's like a pirate
the
culture
planet
basically,
seems they
it's like
seem more like a rowdy bunch. You know what I mean? Like on the
mhm.
planet rather than like outright criminals.
But there's
But
no denying that
there's
there
the crime
is
syndicate going on, so there's like
right.
they're big and in association to crime. You know what I mean? Like it's big, right? Um, so I don't know if I would put it the same
Is it
way.
that Tendy's trying in her like Tendy's very defensive about Orion's like remember like in the first season she's like not Orion all Orions are pirates and then but then she admits like there's always this like little caveat though like she admits like oh well that's at least in the last 5 years or something like
Mm.
that like
Yeah,
and then so there is like this thing that I think she's aware of of course there's misconceptions about Orions being pirates only, but also as you said, they do they are a pirate like based
yes,
culture or civilization.
but
So in a way, Tendy's kind of like in denial, I guess, of that. Like she's trying so
kind
hard
of,
to not be a pirate, thought of as a pirate that she's also in denial that her own culture is that maybe.
but and maybe I'm reading
So
too
that
much
is
into
different
this.
from what I said earlier about like
Yeah, I think it's a bit different.
it
So
is a
maybe I'm
bit
reading
different. Yeah.
too much into this, but I feel like there is a cultural shift already happening with the Orions because this whole like basically a fake kidnapping that's going on, right? That's a cultural kidnapping. So I'm assuming that once upon a time in Orion culture, like if two big families or like two powerful families were gonna have like some sort of arranged marriage or even like a love marriage, maybe a third family or the other or someone would come in and actually kidnap the bride or groom to be. Um he's gone.
Carry on. I'll be right back.
So my mind, culturally speaking, once upon a time they would actually kidnap the groom or the bride or someone associated to like the wedding and to the family, and ask for a ransom, and that's something that would happen very much like on a regular basis. But now they've transformed that into kind of like a game of hide and seek almost. It's like a cultural thing now, or like a traditional thing now, where we have this fake kidnapping, and then it's a whole bunch of adventures. It's kind of like an escape room kind of adventure thing. You know, you go and
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
find the kidnapped person. So that is a cultural shift, I think, that's happening, that is leading away from real crime, but adapting the tradition of that crime into something, um, I think, more fun and feasible. So I feel like she's defending. Maybe she's maybe she's lying to herself a little bit on the extent of like people not being criminals like from Orion, but I think that
Well,
she's
on Orion, they're not criminals, but it's like everywhere else. I
mm.
think that's why Orions have a tough time. Probably why they never ended up joining the Federation
And
is
then if you keep your
because
planet like a secret too, if you're not letting anyone else on, etc., it, you know what I mean, like
yeah,
people
it
just don't
adds to
know.
the
It
mystique.
adds to the assumptions and to the negativity, that. But yeah.
And I think Orion space is pretty vast too, if I'm not mistaken. They've got a bunch of systems, and so I do love that we finally get to crack the Orion bubble, if you will,
Mm.
and get more of a glimpse into them. It's a very interesting culture, and I love the way Lower Decks kind of brought that to life. It's a really cool thing also about animation is that you can like, you know, you can really like do it well and like really go deep because there's like no, I mean there is a budget, but your budget goes further in terms of like what you can present visually and in terms of locations and stuff like that.
Yeah, and so like, you know, there's a whole discussion at the moment on Twitter about the way that Discovery and the artists on Discovery choose to, redesign or recapture, the species that they put on screen. And then of course there's a whole lot of restraints that come with the live action, you know what I mean? Like you're making these molds and what have you, there's budgets and what have you. It's not the same as drawing. You know what I mean? Like with animation, you can design and draw a whole bunch of different things. So they can have a lot more fun and freedom, I find. Or maybe I'm wrong, but I feel like they can have a lot more fun and freedom with like the species that they're making and the species that they're doing
Yeah.
and the different
No, I think that's
versions.
correct. Well, we've been watching the animated series. There's some really wild aliens that they present on the original series animated
Well,
show.
having three
Show.
arms or three legs, you know what I mean, in live action is like in the
A lot
60s or the
harder to do,
70s.
yeah.
Come on, that's impossible to make it look, good. Nowadays, you could like use the magic of visual effects and what have you, like CG, a third leg, what have you, but it's seamless when it's with animation, right?
Yeah. I loved Tillin talking about Boimler and Rutherford as and saying that their emotional closeness is unpleasant. What did you think of the whole Rutherford opening here? Where they go from loving each other to like getting angry about misting the bonsai. Little Boney.
It is relatable. It's also funny because usually, things in lower decks are sped up. You know what I mean? Like things happen quick because of the nature of the show. Um, but this happens quick, but it feels like it would happen quick in real life too. It's like, oh hey, like what are you misting my bonsai for? You know what I mean? Don't go misting when it's my
Would we
turn to
have
mist.
hypothetically if we were roommates? Would we have a bonsai tree?
No,
Toddy, is that
neither you or me are capable of taking care of such a thing.
what are you talking? Why do you assume I'm incapable of taking care of plants? I have a bunch of plants that I care for, and they're all in.
Bonsais are a challenge, though. Come on.
It's always a tree that I've always wanted. Bonsais have been about a part of Star Trek also since TNG, right? Wasn't
Is it true that they feel pain, though?
what bonsai? Oh, tree
Yeah,
or plants?
the
I
bonsai tree. It saddens me to feel like you're torturing the poor thing. You know what I mean?
oh, like that you're always pruning it to be that size and stuff. That's a
It's
really interesting
dreadful.
way of putting it. Now you've got me wondering because like we're always trimming bushes and trimming plants and stuff like that. Are they like
I know people that
getting?
hug trees, like they have like emotional
Yeah,
connections
yeah.
with trees, and these other ones that were like pruning and trimming,
But are we dismembering trees constantly and they're
or is
just
it
like
like a
sad?
haircut
Or is it like a haircut? What
or
is it
like
like?
nail
Any
nail nail clipping here? I don't know.
plant specialists out there, let us know. Is it more like clipping your nails or getting a haircut, or are we actually like torturing these poor trees? Just
I
because
don't, is there a
we don't
consensus, or
detect.
is it just is it up for debate now? You know what I
It's
mean?
I don't know. I never thought about it, but after all these years, I feel like the amount of damage I've done to plants, it'd be really horrifying to know. I've trimmed a
Well,
lot of
some
bushes.
okay, hold on.
Let's just say.
Some seasonal pruning, from my understanding, some seasonal pruning is good for the tree because it helps it grow bigger and stronger after the fact, right?
I mean, that is a result, but is the tree just responding to trauma, or is it responding favor? Like in
Oh
nature,
my God,
trees
is it
aren't.
like you get insulted and what have you, and then you grow from that? Like you it hardens you. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
are we
after
making
bullying, are
hard
we
trees?
bullying the trees?
Are we bullying the trees? But like like sans human intervention, trees rarely lose their limbs. They do shed their foliage, so leaves do fall,
And they grow strong.
but they they don't need trimming though. They'll just keep growing or they'll shape around other trees. Um, so trimming is something humans do, but it's not something that trees need per se to be stronger or anything like that. And yeah, that's crazy. I just hadn't even thought about that. Wow. I mean, like occasionally lightning will hit a tree or maybe high winds will break a branch.
Mm,
But
mm.
but yeah.
Poor things.
Wow. Poor trees. Now I'm like well, anyways. But
No one
anyways,
deserves to be hit by lightning. It's dreadful.
we get the Orion homeworld and it's green. It's
Right.
very green.
It's green, and it's not just green. It has like a green hue to it, like a shine to it that
The
feels very
sky's
original
green.
series. I like it.
Yep. Yep, the sky's green. We
Get
we
some
also
Orion
find out
architecture
that
here.
yep. We also find out that Tendy's quite wealthy. She's the part of the fifth largest syndicate family, I
Yeah,
guess,
that
right?
makes sense. Right. Like that I always assumed that much.
The other ladies are well, Talin's kind
Look
of
at
not
these sexy
saying
men.
it, but they are very sexy. I love all the
No, come on. Talyn's like she's faking it, but she's loving it. You know what I mean?
she's
Because at
loving it,
one point
right?
she does say later on in the episode, like, what does she say? He is
Like
aesthetically
very
pleasing.
aesthetically pleasing. Yeah, I think
Mm.
so.
Look, she's looking at him. She's looking at him.
She is looking at him. It's true. I love uh I love Tendy's house. Look at this gate. It's nuts.
I know, right? Why don't
But
you
is
have a
all
gate
that
like that?
pilfered? Is that gold pilfered from other planets, like plundered? Like
Mm.
Orion, the amount of wealth that Orion families has, like is it all from plundering and pillaging and pirating? Like it's very
Which
interesting.
is a
Like
big
do
ethical and like moral debate that we're having today on Earth. Like, if the species or the culture reforms, so to speak, and if they change and what have you, is what they have now still rightfully theirs, or was it never? You know what I mean?
It's a really good point. Like, should you, like we've got, for example, in various museums in Europe, many artifacts from like Egypt, let's say, or whoever. Do those artifacts, which may have been retrieved through colonial expansion and war and things like that, should they be given
Pillaging,
back? And
right?
pillaging, basically, yeah. Sometimes should those be given back to the original cultures? I say yes. I think even
I
though
do
it's
too. There's many
yeah.
museums that are very open to, like, exchanges and what have you,
Mhm.
because it is more interesting for people that don't have access to like another country. If you can't specifically go to Egypt, and you live somewhere in Europe, you know what I mean? It's nice to be able to know that you can see, a mummy or an artifact from Egypt in your own museum. But it would be nice to know that it's, an
Oh, yeah,
exchange.
stuff going on tour But yeah, it would be nice to know that these things found their way home. In other words, and at
Mm,
least they belong to the people that they should
yeah,
belong to. So yeah, I agree about
that
that.
the actual like the ownership, you know what I mean? The
Yeah,
official piece of paper.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
We get to meet Tendy's parents finally. Shona, what was her name? The warrior queen Shona and Beert.
Nice people, nice folks.
I love meeting Trek characters' parents. It's like
Yeah, there's something about
it's like
that.
there's something like cool about it. Like it's a tradition, I think, from the TNG era for sure. We got to see a little
No,
bit of it
I feel
in the
like
original series.
it comes from like, I feel it stems
Journey to
like,
Bay.
yeah, meeting Spock's parents. You know what I mean?
That was the first time, but like
It's all
we
about
never met. We never
'cause
met anyone else's parents except for Dr. McCoy's dad,
mm,
and
we met
in Star
Kirk's
Trek 5.
brother,
Right, that's true.
but
But
that
yeah,
wasn't his
he's
parent, so to speak.
yeah. So the original series, but you're right. The trope, I guess you could say, was established on the original. But TNG really ran for it. I think we met like everyone's family. We met like Jean-Luc's mom in that one scene. We saw Maurice actually also
Mm.
in Tapestry, if I'm not mistaken. You see
Yeah,
Maurice
yeah.
Picard.
Well, I mean, yeah, we met
We've seen, of course,
Oksana.
yeah, we've seen, of course, Troy's mom, Riker's dad. We saw Worf's both of his parents. We saw Geordie's parents. We saw Dr. Crusher's grandma, her nana.
Sung, technically, you know what I
Oh
mean?
yeah,
Data's
soon, and
father.
his mom
And the
too.
mother too, yeah.
Yeah, the android version of the mother. And who are we missing? Well, of course, Wesley's mom works on the
I
ship.
mean, come on. And we also saw, Wesley's dad a couple times.
Tasha's sister.
Mm.
So TNG really did it, did it all the way.
Yeah, Tasha did it
With
too.
what? Jeez, Tasha did do it, but that's beside the point. But so yeah, I feel like meeting the families is definitely a TNG thing. And maybe Voyager and DS9 too. I can't remember as much.
Well, Bashir's parents.
Right, we do see the Bashir's parents,
And
and
of course, like
of
we
course,
have the whole bloody
Cisco's father.
Ferengi
Yeah,
family.
that's true. That's true. So yeah, family becomes a big part of it. It has become like a
Moogie.
huge trope. Yeah, that's true. Mookie, that's right. I love that. I love that about subject. So here we have Shona and Beert, Tendy's parents, and they. I love the line that Beert says about she's like, "Oh, you guys just like kind of tricked me to come here," and he's like, "Oh yeah, and we want you to take some of your stuff out of the garage or whatever it was," which is really funny and very relatable. So
And here we
here
go. Here
here
we
we
go. It
go.
begins.
I say, Toddy. It starts out
My
as
friend,
I love
we
that they
need to
both.
go down the Mississippi River.
I love that. I love this so much. It's the weirdest thing Star Trek. One of the weirdest things Star Trek has ever done, in
It's
my
such a
opinion.
meme. It's
It's
like,
such a. It's
what
like
are y'all
so good.
doing?
Look
You
at
know
this
what I
poor
mean?
kid. He doesn't. This holographic kid doesn't have any idea what to do with this
It's like,
situation.
why are there
It's
two?
so.
Why are there two Mark Twains? You know what I mean? So, so I'm gonna come out and say this, okay? I have always loved Time's Arrow. Like the sci-fi concepts are insane to me, like the whole out of phase beings sucking the life force out of you. Like I love it. I love it so much. And I love Mark Twain. I just love him. I love the actor, and and
Yes.
I love like the accent and the eccentricness of it all. Like the just it's ridiculous, and I love it so much. And as I grew older, I think I understand that it's not exactly accurate. It's more of it would be more in the realm of parody, wouldn't it?
What do you mean the way
The way they
that?
portrayed Mark Twain in Time's Arrow, or is it accurate?
No, I think that's very much probably a very
But people,
um
I don't know, because I remember reading online that people thought it was annoying or they didn't like the character. But I've always
maybe,
loved
but
him.
not for, I don't know why, but that's probably how Mark Twain spoke. I've seen other depictions of him, and it's very close to the same thing. I mean, he had this very pronounced and kind of like very interesting way of speaking. And I think, yeah, I don't think that's inaccurate. I think it's exaggerated perhaps a little bit.
Mm.
Sorry, I have allergies, so I have to blow my nose, but keep waxing on that,
Out,
Toddy.
outrageous. No, but I absolutely. I've always loved that. Like I've always loved Times Arrow, and I've always loved seeing Mark Twain on screen. His interactions with everyone, like especially with Guinan, to me, it was always the best. And it's funny because I would do the voice when I was a kid. I would do the voice as well. Probably terribly, but as terrible as I'm doing it now. But then to see it happen in this animated series, we've always talked
Yeah.
about it. We've always
Now,
talked about how Lower Decks is something that I've always wanted to happen. You know what I mean? And it's everything that I could have imagined. And then here we are. This is yet again one of those things where I'm like, yeah, I mean, this has
I
been
think
going on in my
even
mind. You know what I mean?
I think the thing about Samuel Clemens, because of his writing and the way, I think he was definitely known for speaking in aphorisms like that. I don't know if people did that in general. Like, I don't know if that was just unique to a few people, but he was kind of a dandy, is the way I always saw him
A
being
dandy.
portrayed. Yeah, just someone very like, hoity-toity in a way, but it's like, yeah. So yeah, I think it's an accurate thing. By the way, Jerry Hardin, the actor Jerry Hardin played Samuel Clemens in
Good
that
job, sir.
episode. Yeah, he did a great job, and he's been in a lot of movies. Of course, he was on the X Files. Everyone knows him from that. But
We will be flying in great spaceships, vast vessels in the blackness of sky. Like,
indeed, and I
what the
think
hell is he talking about? He's nuts.
he's still with us. I hope. Yeah, I don't see a departure date. But he was born in 1929, so he's
A departure date. That is such a cool way of saying it.
it is, right?
I like
Arrival and
that.
departures,
I
right? We
like that.
arrive and we depart. Yeah.
I like that. The departure date. You know what? I like
My
that.
departure date has not been set.
I am not yet expired, madam.
Back on Orion, we get to see an Orion nightclub. And it was called, what was it called? It had a cool name. It was, Slit Throat.
Mariners, like, they didn't even put a pun. They were like, let's
Right.
call it
It's
Slit
just
Throat.
called Slit Throat. And we meet like someone from, we get to see more of how Tendy's treated. We saw a glimpse of this on that episode where they last season where she and Mariner, remember where Mariner had to pretend to be an Orion. So we
Mm.
saw a glimpse of like how revered Tendy is and like how respected she is. But here I mean, like, the dude straight up groveling, like like when he realizes who he was trying, like he almost denied entry
I
to
like the
and stuff.
screenshot. The other guy.
I know, it's really
It's
really
Tendy.
funny. I love that we see
Mistress
different
of the Winter Constellation.
I love when we go into the nightclub, and also into the to the Moan dungeon later on, that we do start to see different kinds of shades of Orion
Yes.
skin and different
Yes.
hairstyles and stuff like that. I love that kind of stuff because it's one of my critiques about classic Star Trek, if you will, is that the alien species are very like lithic in a sense. They're very like the same, like everyone has the same haircut, everyone has the same hair color, it seems, and everyone has the same like green tone of skin or whatever, whereas now with modern Star Trek we definitely see a lot more of the diversity that would be naturally there, which one
But
would expect is there.
but what's cool is like they're taking different greens here, but like some of them aren't random. Like some of these are very much like they're taken from like the green that we got in the animated. Sorry, the green that we got in like Enterprise, right? Some of them look a lot more green, like what we got in Discovery. So no, I think it's great. I
Yeah,
love it.
totally. What'd you think of this, like this, like Orion death
Like the
game that they play.
unnecessary violence added to
Yeah.
taking shots, basically. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I don't know what this biting moth dreadful thing is, but yeah.
It was a cool creature though. I liked it. I love
No,
these little
we need
Star
that,
Trek.
buddy. We need that show. You know
Oh,
the yeah
the menagerie, not the menagerie, the nature show,
yeah the nature
the
show.
Star Trek nature show that we definitely do. Um, anyway, so here she's like, she discovers that she's on. Basically, they're on like kind of a detective type of, like a sort of what do you call it, like a little caper
Scavenger
sort of,
hunt?
so to speak. What's that? Yeah, they're
No,
like
it's not
a
a
mystery.
scavenger
They're
hunt.
trying to
It's more
solve the
yeah.
mystery, so they're going
That's it.
around, and we get to see different aspects of Orion life, at least for Tendy and her family, which they're quite, um, affluent, if you will.
Mm.
Um,
You think this
but
is a rich people's club?
well, I just think that
Think it's a
clubbing
bit
in general
exclusive?
and moan dungeons, and things like that. These are not like maybe
Is
if
this
there are
Miami? Is this Miami vibes?
I think I was gonna say this is probably Miami. Although Mariner does mention when they go to the Moan Dungeon, she does mention that there's one on New Seattle, and I was wondering where New Seattle might be. Like, is that on the moon or like? Because it's definitely because we know from Ash Tyler that Seattle still exists, of course, because Ash is from Seattle. So I'm
New
curious about
Seattle.
New Seattle. Yeah.
So do you think that's an Earth colony, or do you think that could be anywhere else?
Well, we know that there's places like on the moon. Doesn't Riker talk about new something on the
No, but
on the
do you
moon?
think like a new Seattle could have been built, or like on Vulcan or something like that?
No, I don't think
No,
Vulcan.
that no.
Maybe. I don't know.
The
Maybe
Vulcans,
actually.
they wouldn't accept it.
Yeah, I don't think the Vulcans would be down to
Like
have
no no
any
no
kind
no
of. They'd be like, nah, nah, bruh.
no
But it could be on another planet. Definitely a colony like New Seattle could some.
no thank
Yeah.
you. And
I
then
wonder if we'll ever go to New Seattle on Star Trek Lower Decks. It might be cool to see and find out what it's like. Um, but there are Moan dungeons in real Seattle. I happen to know. So,
Moan Dungeons.
no, they're not really
I was
called
gonna say
Moan dungeons. But there are like clubs like this in regular Seattle. I have seen them.
how scandalous.
They're sexy clubs, man. It's a
Sexy
very
clubs.
sexy city.
I
It's a
don't.
sexy city.
I will
Orions are
admit I don't know anything about
and
sexy
Orions are
clubs.
very sexy people. They're into it. They're very sex positive, it seems, and like not, they don't seem to have a problem with sexual stuff in their society, which is interesting and
There are
cool
no
too.
Orions though in Seattle, people. Um, there's sexy clubs, but there's no Orions.
But there might be Orions on New Seattle. Oh, she
Hmm.
called it a hump dungeon. That's what
A
it was.
hump dungeon.
A hump dungeon.
Jesus
That's great.
Christ.
But it's interesting that here we get this idea that this is really kind of a lot to unpack here, because in these scenes we meet this other madam who looks like Ursula from Little
Yeah.
Mermaid to me.
Yes. Clearly, it's
But what's her
inspired.
name? Yeah, inspired. Ingrita was her name, and Ingrita is basically this is where it's like interesting, and I don't want to spend too much time on it unless you have a lot of thoughts about it. But like, there's a couple of like very sketchy things that Ingrita is doing, which I don't know where Orion stand culturally, but so it's revealed in this scene that a lot of these people that are in this dungeon, her boys, if you will, are totally under the influence of her pheromones, and which makes them completely submissive to her whims and desires. And then when Tendy sets them free, their reaction is kind of like, "Oh no, another moan dungeon! Let's get out of here!" Like, so they were taken against their will, it seems. And this seems to have, it seems like a comment that like no one seemed very like,
So I think that so the way
it's
I
kind of like sex trafficking is the way I see it. Maybe I'm being a little too harsh here. What do you think?
no I would agree. Like well okay, so from our human perspective and standards, it is sex trafficking. Would we be able to infer that based on like Orion culture? I don't think we know enough. But
Right.
for
Yeah, I agree with
us,
that.
from our standpoint, yes, it definitely is. I do think that's why the episode made the distinction of like the above and below ground, basically, because there's the club where nothing
Right.
sketchy seems to be happening. It's just a club, you know what I mean?
Right.
People are having a good time, but then when you go beneath, and maybe not every club has a beneath, but when you go into the dungeon, then that's where the sketch is happening. You know what I mean? That's so I feel like the episode did want to make a distinction there. And no, I don't think it's something that should be happening at all.
My inference is that it's not exactly an acceptable thing in Orion culture, and Tendy's even like, "You're a good guy. You should get out of here." Like, But then again, also, what was the name of Niall? Niall seems to be addicted. Like, he admits that he's totally addicted to pheromones and stuff like that. It's kind of I don't know. I felt like this is like a very interesting and
It's
weird
unique because we don't have
and
this, right?
tragic thing.
As
Whoa,
humans.
no, this actually, I mean, we don't have pheromone addiction, but there's definitely substances that people are addicted to
I
that,
mean, yeah, there's pimps. You know what I mean?
well,
That'll keep
she is a
people
pimp
around.
essentially, yeah, a
She is a
madam
pimp.
or whatever, yeah. But I mean, Now's addiction to sex and possibly to like, even though sex positivity is a thing on in Orion, people can probably still get sex addiction and also be addicted to substances, which kind of in our society, it seems like, at least I should say like at least, a struggle that I've seen among some of my kind of when I was younger, in my clubbing days, a struggle one saw is like definitely that is like a lot of young people getting into alcoholism or whatever because it's a way to drop your inhibitions and kind of like let loose, if you will.
Mm.
And so I wonder if Niall is having a similar experience where like, this is like it started out as a way to like loosen up, if you will. No pun intended, but then became like something where the only way Niall can experience this is through that. So yeah, a lot to unpack. Very interesting. I love that Lower Decks put this in here and left it kind of vague because it does give kind of a springboard to many interesting conversations.
Well, it's a heavy and complex topic. If they were to start addressing it, it would like you could like it would take the entire episode. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. And then
So, and
also
this story isn't
Also,
about that
understandably,
specifically.
yeah, a little too serious. It could get a little too serious there, right? Like for the tone of the show overall. But it would be neat to explore this in live action. Orions have never also later on they seem to at least the Emerald Chain Orions in the 32nd century, they seem to graduate more from like showing skin to like being in tight leather. So it's interesting that Orions have changed over time as
You know,
well.
fashions change. You know what I mean?
No, indeed, it's true. But back to the Cerritos here. We already talked
Ah,
a little bit about this, but this was great.
what a handsome fellow.
That guy, right? Like that
Yeah, yeah,
creature,
yeah.
he's very cool. I love Don Lewis's performance in the scene. How she just you could really feel through her voice acting work. The discomfort and like just like why am I doing this? Like, I thought her Twain was very good when she did attempt.
It's just outrageous to me that she was like, "Let's roll with it." You know what I mean? Like people, they're like, "Oh, we resolve our problems like this," and it's the most ridiculous thing you've ever heard. And you're like, I guess we'll try."
And
Now I want to see Picard resolve like an argument like this. You know what I mean?
dresses Twain. I think everyone should resolve arguments as Twain or Mozart, like they did in the end. But yeah, this is just so absurd. This is the thing about Lower Decks that like I wait for these moments like where it's just so bizarre and absurd, but you can't help but laugh. Did you expect he was gonna eat the tree? Did
No,
you think that's where
no.
it's
Like, I mean, we can predict some things. You know, what I mean, we've watched a lot of TV shows, but like some things, you
I
just,
did,
you
I
know,
really didn't think he was gonna eat it. Little Bodie. Poor little Bodie.
they can just replicate another one. Come on.
What did you think when you saw when they finally figure out where Derek is? What did you think when they they found the Raven, the ship, Seven of Nine ship, right? Isn't that the same kind of ship that her parents were in?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Were you excited? Do you like that ship? No.
Do I like the ship? I've never really cared about the ship. Do I
I
like
love
Seven?
it. I
Do
think
I
it's a cool
like
design.
Seven's parents? No, I think
Oh
they're
yeah,
horrible people. Or at the very least, they're horrible parents. Let's put it that way. You know. Um, was it fun seeing it? Like, you know what I mean? Yeah.
yeah. It's. I think it was fun, but this is cute. Like to see that she hung out in this ship when she was a kid, basically, and that's how she learned science and like all that stuff. So it is kind of neat that this like junked ship that they had salvaged.
Mm,
Uh, could it be the ship? Could it be the Raven? No, the Raven got destroyed in that episode, right?
I forget what's it called. What's it called in this
I
one?
thought it was. No, it wasn't called. I don't think it was. It wouldn't be the Raven. That ship
Okay,
got
it's
destroyed.
just
I
the
don't
same
remember
same
the
class.
name. Yeah, it's definitely the same class. But this is another thing that again, it's like, what do you think of the whole idea that like Tendy didn't really talk to her sister and just kind of left them, and now she has to kind of reconcile with all that.
So that's something that they've done a few times in Star Trek. I that I cannot really relate to. I wouldn't see
I feel like
myself
Worf went through
just
some of this, right? Like Worf kind of goes through
somewhat,
this
but there
kind
was
of
like
thing.
a war involved in his kind of like displacement. I guess it's not something that I wouldn't see myself like leaving and just not talking about it with people or addressing the situation. Like I'm not saying I wouldn't do it if everyone said no. Like maybe I would go against people's wishes, but at least there would be like discussion and people would be aware of what's happening. I wouldn't just, so I don't really know, but it's nice that she has to kind of confront that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. I loved Erica. I thought she was a cool character. I loved meeting Tendy's sister. Um, I love the whole, sword fight that they were doing here and everything. It was very cool. Oh, we
Mm.
already started that slide. There she is with the tip of what is it called? The moonlit blade or something like that. It was
I
very
mean, it's a
cool.
really cool blade. I'll tell you that. It looks really cool.
Yeah, I would love to see like a replica made of it. There's the ship flying, and I like this moment where she asks Lynn not to include some of these things, and Lynn's just like tosses her iPad because she was taking some funny notes throughout the whole time, like about Orion contradictions and some of the hard truths about Orions. But she does say like it would be unethical to write an essay or a report about a culture without the permission of the people, right? And so I love that,
Yeah,
like
there's
that
a
message. It was a very good message there.
Talin, like throughout this episode, kills it
Yeah,
because
she's
she's just got
fantastic.
these remarks. You know what I mean? Like now and then she'll just drop something. You're like, oh my god, she's
I
good.
love Talin just like is all about the truth bombs, like that's it. Like and also
It's just the
delivering them without
facts.
any, yeah,
You know
just
what I
the
mean?
facts, no passion. Just the facts, dispassionate facts. It's true.
Absolute candor, baby.
Absolute candor. It's true. The Vulcans had it. It makes sense that the Romulans would have a version of it of that. I mean, that's true. Good point. Good point. There's the wedding. I like that they created this like wedding scene here. We don't see a lot of weddings in Star Trek. We saw one in the original series. We saw, of course, in the Next Generation, Keiko and
Which one would that
O'Brien's.
be?
The original series, remember?
No, I'm talking about the TNG. That's just
Oh,
trolling.
Keiko and Miles. Didn't they get married on Data's Day? It was a
Oh, I
Data's
thought you were
Day.
talking. I thought you were talking like Riker and Troy, but okay.
Well, yeah. We then we see their wedding, of course,
Hmm.
and then after that, I don't think there's any other wedding. Do Tom and B'Elanna get married on screen? And I can't remember.
Uh,
Did Cisco marry Cassidy, or were they just
didn't Tom
together?
and Balana get married in that fake episode where they all melt?
Oh, maybe that's probably what it was. That's where I'm remembering that. I really need
They
to.
they throw the rice and it falls through the decks.
That's right. That's right.
What a great episode! Boy, it just slaps people.
It does slap. It slaps me into sleep. No, just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Jesus, dude.
Just kidding. But there's the
Now listen
gushing.
here, my friend.
All's well that ends well. All's well that ends well, Toddy. Look at that. They finally get together. We get a little recap. I love this scene because it's exactly what happens when you get back from a trip and you're at the office and you show all your work friends like your trip. So that was like really
The
cool.
group is 5 now, eh?
Yeah,
I like it.
I like it too. It's very nice. And then Boimler and Rutherford find a new way to settle argument. They're twin Mozarts now.
So even though it's all about arguments and they're settling arguments, I feel like they really enjoy each other's company and
They
they're just
love
having
each
fun.
other.
They're just having fun with this. You know what I mean? Like if we were twin Twains or twin Mozarts or twin Beethovens, you know what I mean? We would come on. It's good fun.
We're twin
Twin
twins.
Picards.
Tanya, I feel like we're definitely Brotherford energy over here. I was trying to. What would be like a good combination of our names? It would be like So Sean, or like So Sean, or
Yeah, we don't have adaptable names. Maybe I don't know.
no, it's hard. Brotherford's kind of genius. Like you
It is
can't get back.
actually.
That's like Brotherford. Pretty good. So overall, I think this episode for me is probably, as much as I liked it and liked seeing Orion and everything like that, to me, it wasn't like there wasn't anything terribly new about Tendy, I guess, that I felt we got here, other than, well, maybe we did. I'm going to think about that. But I'm going to give this episode an 8.5.
What?
Yes.
It's ridiculous. Who
I
are you?
know. Who am I indeed? What are you going to get? What about you? What are your final thoughts?
Hold on. Did I already rate this? Because I don't know if no, because I'd seen this one already. So I don't know if I'd already rated it. Sometimes I rate things like by myself, even if I don't rate them with you.
I know you have a whole Excel spreadsheet, so yeah, you got to keep that
Um,
thing updated.
I love this episode. I love Tendy. So every time we start talking about Tendy, it's good. I feel like the B plot was really good. Like it was really strong. Like the whole roomy kind of like situation. And then was that the B plot or was that the C plot? Because then there's also the like what's happening with the captain. You know what I mean?
I think that's more like B.5 or something, or
Oh, B
B and
point
a half.
five,
Yeah, like I think it's like B and a half.
B and a half. Okay.
Yeah, I like that.
No, I liked it. I love like the lore and the expansion and exploration of like the Orion culture. We didn't learn so much about Tendy. I think you agree in the sense that we already kind of knew. This is just confirming things that we kind of already knew. You know what I mean?
Right.
But I did feel the depth of the like the emotional struggle that her sister went through, and I really liked like the resolution of that and how they got together and whatnot.
I think I felt like there wasn't enough of other people like Tendy in the episode on Orion. It seems like Tendy was like really
That I
truly
agree with.
truly like just an anomaly, and like I wanted to see, I think, some people that like looked up to her maybe, or saw
Mm,
her as like an inspiration, because like I wanted to see a little more of that,
yeah,
and not so much of this antagonism and you know against her and so on and so forth.
I agree with that. I do think though that like if I would have you know take a step back from like like the context works because like we know that her family is not like the family views aren't aligned with hers necessarily. She comes from like maybe that culture or that place, so specifically maybe that city or wherever they're not like her. But it would be interesting to re-explore either Orion again or like an Orion colony somewhere that are completely different, like that have chosen a different way. You know,
Well, we do see.
there was that Klingon colony
Right,
with the
no, and then we
Romulans,
do,
you know.
to the credit, I mean, we have seen so much more of Orions lately, but in you've already seen the live action crossover on Strange New Worlds. So I feel like those Orion scientists, that was cool to see, like a science vessel, There was an
Mm.
actual Orion science vessel in that. So, you know, we didn't get it on lower decks, but we still got it lower decks related, kind
Adjacent.
of, you know, adjacent. Yeah, so that was interesting. Which apparently that was Tendy's great great grandmother was serving on that science vessel as well. So that was an interesting little addition to it. But yeah, it's cool to see, you know, as I think Fathery, our friend Fathery, or someone was pointing out. Well, you do this, you point this out too, and so does Larry Nemechek, I guess. It's like, you know, like these are some of the older kind of from TOS like species that we never got too much of, and now we're seeing a lot more about Andorians. We're seeing a lot more about Orions. It's just a matter of time before we get a lot more about Tellarites, you know. So, you know, so
Who are they?
well, I mean, Jankum Pog is a good kind of introduction to
He's
the
a Talax.
Tellarites.
Look at him. He looks Talaxian.
I know, but he's a
Yeah, it's okay. He's a
Tellarite. We know
Tellarite.
he's a
It's okay. It's
Tellarite.
okay. It's okay.
He's a Pog. He's a runt, you know. So I do like that we're seeing more of these like original series, you know, species being fleshed out, and it
I would
looks
like
like,
to explore that, by the way, the concept of like the runts, and like I want to explore that a bit. But yeah,
yeah, I hope we get more of that in Prodigy season 2. So yeah,
and three
what do
and
you rate
four and
this
five.
episode, Toddy?
I
What's
also
your
give it an 8, but then like my
wow?
8 technically is a way higher than like your 8. You know what I mean?
Well, I gave it an
Um,
8.5, so I think I'll just
8.5.
round. I'll go up to a 9. I after talking about it a little bit with you, I think yeah, you're right. I
No, I
should go
think
with
I think it's a solid episode. Yeah. Has okay. So has Lower Decks been more bold than this episode? Yes. But like I feel like this episode was kind of a long time coming. We've all kind of wanted to explore a bit of Tendy's past and see Orion. Um, and I don't think they missed their mark. You know what I mean? They could have done, you know, a couple more things, fine. But like, no, I think it was well delivered.
yeah,
So.
I agree. I agree. Very solid episode. Just a few little things here and there, little you
Really
know,
cool sword. So you know,
yeah,
get some
really
points
cool
for that.
sword. Well, Toddy, thanks for joining me. Thank you, audience who
Oh, and
tuned in
then
to this vlog. Oh,
I'm sorry.
sorry.
They actually talked about and like addressed and explained pheromones. You know what I
Oh
mean?
yeah, yeah. We didn't talk.
So
Did we did not go into
not
that?
so
Yeah.
much. We just talked
Oh,
about how
okay.
like it was a little iffy on
Oh, right, we
Madam.
did. But
Yeah.
yeah, you're right. So on Enterprise, it's established that Orions have pheromones. Then like Mariner says, like, oh, that's just like a thing that Starfleet made up so that a captain wouldn't be embarrassed. But it turns out it's actually true because
Well, at one
Orions
point,
do have some Orions do have
there's one episode with Tendy in like one of the first seasons says we don't all have them or we don't all use them or whatever it is. You know what I
right,
mean?
right, right. So it's
Um.
interesting.
So yeah, it's cool. It's cool
The
that we're getting
stink.
more lore on that.
Yeah, it is
The what?
true. The stink. He was calling it the. I'm hooked
Oh,
on
the
the
stink.
stink or the stink, or
The
my stink
stank.
is all, or like she was like, Ingrita was like, my stink is all I have.
Slip me.
Sniff me. And on that note, we'll sniff you later, audience. Thank you for joining.
Stink you next time.
Thank you next time. So thanks for joining us. What's next week's episode?
Let me look it up.
I
Let
knew
me look it
this.
up. People know these
Oh,
things and
it's
we don't.
empathetically. What is it? Empathetical something. I can't remember. It's something to do with Talin though.
You don't
Maybe it's
know. Empathological fallacies.
there. You go. Empathological fallacies. So that's our next episode, which we hope to be back live. Right, Fridays,
Hopefully, yeah.
5 p.m. So until then, we hope you will have a great week, live long and prosper, and we will see you next time.